Most people think lifting light fixes technique, but here's the problem. When the weight gets heavy, your form falls apart again. I'll show you how to build technique that sticks no matter the intensity. If you are just learning, stick with lighter weights to focus on proper movement. However, if you have good technique at light weights, but it breaks down with heavier ones, we have 4 main areas to address: general strength imbalances, specific strength imbalances, neuromuscular control, and structural imbalances. Then we'll tie all these strategies together to give you a full understanding of their application to your specific needs. Understand though, I am only going to provide an example, walking through how each of these looks on a specific lift, the squat, and how to implement a solution. I can't cover every possible lift or scenario, so use this as a principal guide to address the specific lift and issue that you're having trouble with. A general strength imbalance is when one side of your body is stronger than the other. This is going to lead to shifting to the dominant side, as weight gets heavy and surpasses your weak side's ability to handle that load. You also leave weight off the bar through inefficient movement. My go-to test is a Bulgarian split squat, but other single leg variants could work too. Build up to a pretty heavy set of 5. You should notice it being much easier on the strong side. If they feel comparable, you likely don't have a problem. We're not talking about you doing the same weight for 6 reps on the right side and 5 reps on the left. You will have a noticeable gap in strength. This is typically the first thing I test because it's pretty easy to do on just your next workout day. If this isn't a problem, then go to the next step. If it is an issue, I would implement the following strategy. On your main lift, lower the weight slightly so that your form stays pretty solid. Not super low weights, but light enough that you can execute with good technique. Then hammer away at the single leg work, in this case, doing more volume on the weak side. I might program 3 sets on the strong side and 5 sets on the weaker side. If you have a hunch that leg is weaker in multiple movement patterns, adding something in like single leg back extensions to hit that more hip hinge pattern could work as well. Everything else, keep normal in your program. Give it at least 6 weeks to work on closing that strength gap. If you've made meaningful progress, build up to a decently heavy set of 5 in your main lift and see where you break down. If you still feel that one leg is significantly stronger, give it another 6 weeks and keep pushing that volume and intensity, especially on the weak side. If strength gaps between sides aren't the issue, move to our next problem point, addressing specific muscle group imbalances. The primary movers for the squat are the quads and glutes, with supporting roles from the core and lower back, especially on lower bar or more bent forward squat techniques. If one of these muscle groups lags behind, form breaks down, and you can't lift as heavy. This actually gets pretty complicated when diagnosing your weak spots. We have to take several pieces of information together and often can't rely on a single piece of data. An example is you might feel your quads more, but it could be because they are the weak muscle group, giving out first, or they are the overcompensating muscle group for the true weak link, and you don't really feel that one because it just can't do the work. This is the nuance though that separates champion level coaches and athletes from those just out for a quick fix. If the quads are weak, likely the hips will shoot back coming out of the hole as you struggle to stay upright. Your body is trying to rely on the stronger glutes, hamstrings, and lower back, turning the lift into a hip hinge. Typically the mid-range of the lift and just above the hole will be where you struggle, and your quads may fatigue and burn out before any other muscle group. Testing this can be difficult. I might suggest comparing your front squat ratio, but that also assumes you front squat regularly. A decent data point again, combined with the others we'll discuss, is your squat to deadlift ratio. If your conventional deadlift is much stronger and you aren't overly built for deadlifting over squatting, like having really long arms or legs, and you're having these problems, the quads are likely a weak point. That, combined with the breakdown occurring as described, gives you a pretty good guess. Now, if the glutes are weak, you may see the knees caving in on the drive up, and you'll be able to keep your torso fairly upright, but feel like the hips just stop coming forward. It's like you're driving really hard with the legs, but the hips just won't move. You will also feel the lower back and hamstrings more in this scenario, and the glutes just might not feel turned on. The breaking point will typically occur out of the hole into the mid-range of the lift. If you suspect weak glutes, doing some glute bridges and hip thrust can shed light on this. If you struggle to feel the glutes, or they fatigue and cramp seemingly quickly, the glutes are likely a problem. You also just won't feel powerful on something like the hip thrust, like you have no juice. If the lower back is your weak link, It might result in a similar looking squat to if your quads are weak. Your chest will fall forward and you'll struggle to hold that upright position. The difference though is that if your quads are weak and lower back is strong, you will often be able to grind out lifts from this position, or at least fight against the weight. If your lower back is weak, you are likely to fail the lift as soon as your hips rise and strain is applied to your lower back. You might also struggle with conventional deadlifts relative to your squat strength. If you take all of the pieces of information together, you can likely find your culprit. And honestly, dealing with it is pretty simple. You need to lower the weight to where you can execute proper positions, and then hammer the weak link in isolation or isolating compounds. For the quads, doing things like slant board squats, hack squats, and even leg extensions can help. For the glutes, utilizing pretty heavy hip thrusts and glute bridges while focusing on the mind-muscle connection to make sure your glutes are firing. For the lower back, back extensions, reverse hypers, good mornings, and RDLs. After your main lift work, in this case the squat, work on building up the volume and intensity in whatever lift you chose to attack that weak point. Over 6 weeks, and likely longer as you're trying to build up strength in those movements, you should start feeling smoother in the main lift. Another great strategy is to do pause reps at the point in the lift you typically fail. Just make sure you use a light enough weight that you can actually maintain proper position and continue attacking the weak link in isolation. Before you worry too much about a specific strength imbalance, remember, at some point, the weight is just going to be heavy enough that you will fail. That doesn't mean you have a weak link, or at least one worth addressing with such precision. If your squats are looking great, up to say 95% of your max, you're just getting to a heavy weight. However, if you start seeing these technical breakdowns earlier, like around 75 to 80%, and you can kind of just grind through using other muscle groups, then it might be worth addressing on its own. Now to the technical breakdown that makes me sound smart. A lack of neuromuscular control. If strength doesn't seem to be the issue, but the movement itself just seems off, you might suffer from a lack of specific coordination, as in the muscles just aren't working properly together to execute the full movement. In the squat, this most often can manifest itself in a hip shift. This can take the longest to fix because you have to retrain how your body coordinates muscles at certain points in the lift. There are 2 main techniques to try here. The first is to trick your body into doing the right thing. Here is an example of an athlete I used to work with. He was shifting pretty hard, so we pulled in that direction with a light weight. His job was to execute good squats, staying balanced, despite me pulling him. So basically, he was overcompensating in the opposite direction. Then, when the band was removed, his body was used to overcompensating in the opposite direction of his shift, and the squat looked much straighter. Using this technique should yield immediate results. However, it takes months of doing this regularly before it can be fixed without using the band to pull. You've got to re-ingrain the proper pattern. The other thing I would do, especially while warming up and on lighter days, is tempo squats. Go slow, both on the way down and up, focusing on maintaining proper position. I use this a lot with young athletes just learning to squat. The goal is to feel every position of the lift. You can get used to coasting through parts of the lift because you have momentum. This forces you to control every inch of the lift and focus on how you are moving. Over time, this can strengthen weak positions and help you coordinate better, where maybe you weren't just getting a strong muscular action because you always had momentum going through that spot. This leads to breakdowns when the weight starts getting heavy enough that momentum can't carry you through. Both the easiest and hardest to fix are structural imbalances. An example might be one leg longer than the other, your spine or hips are out of alignment, or to use another lift, the bench press, your shoulder blades are winging. If something is genuinely asymmetrical with your structure, like a limb longer than the other, you might want to find a different exercise that you don't get those issues with. Or you can try finding a creative solution. Sometimes though, a few adjustments done by a knowledgeable chiropractor can do wonders, especially if combined with a few weeks of slightly lowering the weight just to make sure you're moving properly, and strengthening the area that was out of whack. It won't be a fix overnight, because your body has to get used to moving correctly again, as it probably created many overcompensating tendencies while out of whack. Now to quickly tie everything together, so you don't waste time trying to apply these techniques when nothing is actually wrong. Make sure you are videotaping lifts from multiple different angles. That is 1, how you will know where the technical breakdowns are occurring, and 2, how you will monitor if your implemented solutions are helping. Don't guess. Typically, the back and side work fine, as you can see different kinds of problems that might be hard to see from the other angle. With that, make sure you have a solid understanding of what good technique actually looks like and what the fundamental principles are for each lift. Check out our technique playlist where we have tons of major lifts and add more regularly. From our technique videos, you'll see they have principles, not absolutes. The same lift can be executed well, but look differently, depending on things like your limb length and other body proportions. Focus on the principles, not an exact look. Someone with short femurs like myself is going to be able to stay very upright while squatting, and someone with much longer femurs may bend over more and feel more comfortable with a more low bar technique. However, the principles remain the same. Focus on those, and the visual of the technique will change based on your body. Even if you have multiple of these areas to address, unless it is really bad, pick one at a time to attack. This is like a science experiment on yourself to find the problem and address it. You need to eliminate variables to actually get a cause and effect. Start with the easiest to fix, address it, and then see how that changes the other problems. Don't try implementing everything at once, thinking it will make solving the problem any faster. The final mistake is to avoid thinking that strength and technique are different. They evolve together. This is one reason you can't get super strong by doing isolation lifts, only to try and combine it for a squat. Your body won't be able to use that strength and muscle for that specific movement. Try to just squat light and with perfect form, and you'll never teach your body to execute good technique while under heavy strain or enhanced fatigue. There is no such thing as perfect technique, but we can always improve on our weaknesses. Figure out what you need to work on, create a plan to fix it, and get after it. You will learn and evolve with each passing rep. Good luck, and let's keep getting better together.